Welcome to another gallery in our Museum of Financial History. Today, we're standing before one of the most ambitious ideas ever attempted in the modern world. The euro. A currency shared not by one nation but by many. Yet the real question is not what the euro is. The real question is, why would independent countries willingly give up their own money? Imagine waking up one morning, the money you've used your entire life is suddenly gone. No German mark. No French franc. No Italian lira. No Spanish peseta. Instead, everyone around you is using the exact same currency. For millions of Europeans, this wasn't fiction. It happened. For centuries, every European country had its own currency. Each one reflected its history, its identity, and its independence. These currencies survived revolutions, economic crises, and even world wars. Changing them seemed almost impossible. So what changed? To understand the answer, we need to travel back to Europe after the Second World War. The continent was devastated. Cities had been destroyed. Factories had stopped producing. Trade had collapsed. Europe faced a difficult choice. Continue competing with one another or begin rebuilding together. Slowly, countries realized something important. Peace alone wasn't enough. Prosperity required cooperation. Businesses wanted to trade across borders. Factories wanted to sell products to neighboring countries. People wanted to travel, work, and invest more freely. But one major obstacle kept getting in the way. Money. Every border meant another currency. Every journey meant exchanging cash. Every international business deal required complicated calculations. Exchange rates changed constantly. Companies lost time. Travelers lost money. Even simple trade became unnecessarily expensive. Europe had become a marketplace with too many price tags. Economists began asking an unusual question. What if Europe didn't need so many currencies? What if businesses in Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and Rome could all calculate prices using exactly the same money? Trade would become faster. Investment would become easier. And economic cooperation could grow stronger than ever before. At first, the idea sounded almost impossible. Money is more than paper. It represents national pride. History. Culture. Trust. Giving up a national currency meant giving up a symbol that generations had grown up with. Few people believed governments would ever agree. Yet, throughout the 1980s, Europe moved closer together. Economic cooperation expanded. Borders became easier to cross. Trade increased year after year. The dream of a united European market was becoming reality. But one final piece was still missing: a common currency. In 1992, leaders from across Europe gathered to sign one of the most important agreements in modern European history, the Maastricht Treaty. It wasn't simply another political document. It was a roadmap towards something the world had never seen before. A shared currency for multiple independent nations. The agreement established strict economic rules. Countries would need stable inflation. Responsible government spending. Healthy public finances. Only those meeting these standards could eventually join the new monetary union. It was a bold experiment. And it carried enormous risks. Standing here in this gallery today, it's easy to think the euro was inevitable. But at that moment, nothing was guaranteed. Many doubted the plan. Many feared failure. Yet Europe had taken its first irreversible step toward creating a currency that would soon change the lives of hundreds of millions of people. And that was only the beginning. The Maastricht Treaty was only the beginning. Signing an agreement was easy. Creating an entirely new currency was something else. Thousands of economists, bankers, engineers, designers, and government officials now faced a challenge unlike anything in history. They weren't simply replacing old money. They were creating a financial system that would serve millions of people across multiple nations. It had to be secure, reliable, and trusted from the very first day. Then, on January 1st, 1999, something extraordinary happened. The euro officially came into existence. But almost nobody could actually see it. There were no euro banknotes. No euro coins. Nothing people could hold in their hands. Instead, the euro existed only inside computers. Banks began using it. Financial markets adopted it. Large international companies started keeping their accounts in euros. For ordinary citizens, however, life looked exactly the same. They still paid with francs, marks, lira, pesetas. Nothing appeared to have changed. Yet behind the scenes, Europe's financial system had already entered a new era. For the next 3 years, Europe lived with two worlds at the same time. People carried their familiar national currencies. Banks operated using the euro. Every transaction, every exchange rate, every financial calculation quietly prepared the continent for one historic day. Meanwhile, an enormous logistical operation was underway. Billions of banknotes had to be printed. Billions of coins had to be minted. Every security feature had to be tested. Every ATM had to be upgraded. Every cash register had to recognize an entirely new currency. Armored trucks crossed Europe. Cargo aircraft transported sealed containers filled with freshly printed euro banknotes. Central banks worked day and night. The operation became one of the largest currency replacements ever attempted. Finally, the countdown reached its end. Midnight. January 1. Across Europe, clocks struck 12. Banks opened their vaults. ATMs released brand new euro banknotes for the very first time. People lined up in the cold, not to witness a concert, not to celebrate a sporting event, but simply to hold history in their hands. For many people, it felt emotional. The money they had used since childhood, the currency their parents and grandparents had trusted, was suddenly becoming part of history. German marks disappeared. French francs vanished. Italian lira faded away. Spanish pesetas were exchanged forever. Within just a few weeks, centuries of monetary history quietly came to an end. Yet something remarkable happened. The transition was smoother than many experts had predicted. Shops adapted quickly. Banks remained stable. Businesses continued trading. Millions of people learned to recognize the new banknotes almost overnight. It became one of the largest peaceful financial transformations the modern world had ever witnessed. By the end of the transition, more than 300 million Europeans were using exactly the same currency every single day. Different languages, different cultures, different histories, but now one shared wallet, one shared economy, and one bold experiment that the entire world was watching. In the next gallery, we'll discover something most people never notice. Why do euro banknotes show bridges and windows instead of famous people? And what hidden message is quietly printed into every single euro note? Now that Europe shared one currency, a different question emerged. What should that currency look like? Designing a banknote may sound simple, but for the euro it became one of the greatest design challenges in modern history. How do you create money for many different nations without favoring any single one? Most countries place famous leaders, kings, scientists, and national heroes on their banknotes. Europe chose a completely different path. Instead of celebrating individual people, the euro celebrates shared history, shared culture, and shared values. It tells a story that belongs to everyone. Look closely at every euro banknote. You'll notice something unusual. There are no portraits, no presidents, no emperors. Instead, you'll find windows and doorways. These symbolize openness. They represent the idea that Europe welcomes cooperation, dialogue, and opportunity. Every open doorway is an invitation. Every window looks toward the future. Turn the note over and you'll see something else. Bridges. Not real bridges, but imaginary ones. Why? Because choosing an existing bridge from one country might suggest that nation was more important than another. Instead, designers created fictional bridges inspired by different architectural styles throughout European history. Each bridge represents connection, not only between places but between people. Between cultures, and between generations. Even the architecture tells a story. The smallest banknotes reflect the elegance of the classical and Romanesque periods. Larger denominations move through Gothic cathedrals, the Renaissance, Baroque masterpieces, iron and glass engineering, and finally modern architecture. As the value of the note increases, so does the journey through European history. It's like carrying a miniature history museum in your wallet. The coins tell another fascinating story. Every euro coin has two faces. One side is shared across Europe, a reminder that every member belongs to the same monetary union. But turn it over and each country reveals its own identity. Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Finland, Austria. Each nation keeps a small piece of its heritage. Different designs. One currency. A remarkable balance between unity and individuality. Today the euro is used by hundreds of millions of people every day. It travels through airports, markets, factories, coffee shops, banks, and digital payments. For many Europeans, using the euro feels completely natural. An entire generation has grown up never knowing the currencies that came before it. Of course, the euro has also faced difficult moments. Financial crises, economic uncertainty, political debates. Like every great experiment, it has been tested many times. Yet it continues to remain one of the world's most important currencies, trusted far beyond Europe's borders. So is the euro simply about replacing old banknotes? Not really. Its true purpose was much greater. To make trade easier. To strengthen cooperation. And to prove that independent nations could build something meaningful together without losing their unique identities. As we leave this gallery, take one last look at the euro. It is more than paper, more than metal. More than numbers on a screen. It is a symbol of trust, a symbol of cooperation, and one of the boldest economic experiments in human history. Because sometimes the most powerful currency in the world isn't built only on wealth. It's built on confidence, on shared purpose, and on the belief that many nations can move forward together. Thank you for joining me today. I'll see you in our next journey through the fascinating history of money.